Mark Consuelos, an actor, and Kelly Ripa have long been beloved by watchers of American television. Theirs is one of the most famous and beloved love stories in Hollywood, and for good reason. It has endured for decades. Tragedies, however, can sneak into even the most idyllic lives behind the scenes. Rumors of an intensive care unit emergency involving Mark Consuelos recently rocked fans to their very core. What transpired? Millions of people were left to wonder as doctors whispered tragic information and Kelly Ripa looked distraught. The dramatic tale of a fateful night that altered their family's trajectory serves as a poignant reminder that even the brightest stars are subject to the same precarious orbit as the rest of us. Early warning signals of problems. A mundane evening was the starting point. After filming her program came to a close, Kelly Ripa shared a brief behind-the-scenes Instagram shot while smiling with the crew. Mark, ever the encouraging spouse, sent her a lighthearted text message to put a smile on her face before she went to sleep. However, Kelly would eventually find herself hurriedly arriving at a hospital, her heart racing and her mind racing, just hours after the incident. Earlier that week, Mark had voiced his dissatisfaction with his chest tightness. He was in his early 50s and had a full plate between performing, producing, and family responsibilities, so he just shrugged it off. Probably stressed, he informed Kelly, ignoring her worries and flashing his signature smile. On the other hand, stress might mask more serious threats. Later that night, he was confronted by it. A call from the intensive care unit. At about midnight, Kelly's phone started ringing. Suddenly, an unfamiliar number appeared on the screen. It would normally go unnoticed by her. However, she felt compelled to respond. The voice that spoke was both calm and urgent. Mrs. Ripa Consuelos? Greetings from New York Presbyterian Hospital. Admission has been granted to your husband. You must arrive right now. Her tummy plummeted. As if echoed in a tunnel, the words reverberated in her thoughts. I acknowledge it. Right away. She was led through sterile corridors that reeked of antiseptic as she was led past waiting rooms upon her arrival at the hospital. The nurses spoke in hushed tones. Physicians acted swiftly. Amidst the constant beeping of machines, Mark was encircled by monitors and wires in the intensive care unit. Doctors disclosed the tragic details. Kelly was taken aside by Dr. Patel, an experienced physician. His demeanor was composed and caring, yet professional. Your spouse experienced a cardiac episode. The condition is grave, but he is stable currently. In order to determine the full scope of the damage, we are conducting testing. Cardiac event. She was unnerved by the word. Tears welled up in Kelly's eyes. Mark had made light of his difficulty earlier in the week with jokes, which she recalled with a jolt. As machinery ensured his survival, she reflected on the joyous family meals, shared laughter, and future children, all of which seemed precariously balanced. Dr. Patel went on to say, Mark has been ignoring warning signs. Her words had weight. Things like stress, long hours of work, and not getting enough sleep build up. He ought to have arrived earlier, which is the unfortunate detail. The following 24 hours are crucial, but we will do all in our power to help. The heartbreak of Kelly. Kelly rested her hand on Mark's as they sat side by side in bed. Even though his flesh was warm, she could no longer feel the power she had come to expect from his hold. She now saw him for the first time in years, not as the imposing spouse who had shielded her from harm, but as a frail man struggling in silence with his own body. Her voice quivered as she pleaded with Mark, her tears streaming down her cheeks. Not in this way. I felt like I was in the intensive care unit forever. With each cardiac monitor beep, a prayer was offered. She was constantly reminded by the sound of a nurse's footsteps that life was precarious, fleeting, and uncertain. There she was, a scared woman who was afraid she might lose the love of her life, the opposite of the self-assured, cheerful host that viewers witness on television. Gatherings of family members. Upon hearing the news, their 3 children wasted no time in making a beeline for the hospital. Their hearts sank as they saw their pale but fighting father laying in bed. Dad's strong, Michael reassured his younger siblings. He'll be able to overcome this. Without fail, he does. Fear, though, was plainly visible to Kelly in their eyes. She was terrified of the same things. Friends and family of Mark, including those in the industry, started contacting to offer their condolences and words of encouragement. Consuelos' Ripa family had always kept to themselves, but at this very moment, their circle of friends and acquaintances grew. All the hope and prayer in the world couldn't have helped them. Romantic recollections, thoughts and feelings rushed back to Kelly as she sat there, distraught and weary. When they first met on the set of All My Children, they were both young, naive, and laughing uncontrollably. Their impromptu wedding in Sin City, a flurry of happiness that seemed predetermined. In the midst of their popularity, they are raising their children as a normal, loving family. Many appearances on the red carpet, where they saw each other as more than simply co-stars. They were soulmates. In retrospect, she could see how precious every moment they had spent together had been. On top of that, she hoped against hope that this was just the beginning of the story, a game of waiting. The doctors put in countless hours. The medical terminology around tests, scans, and therapies became hazy. All updates were cherished by Kelly. She started to repeat the word stable like a mantra. At the same time, news outlets learned about the crisis. Reports went viral online, with headlines like Mark Consuelos rushed to ICU. Kelly Robinson visible in a tearful state at the hospital. Consuelos' health. Breaking news from doctors. Many fans took to social media to express their condolences, offer prayers, and share nostalgic videos of the couple's most tender moments. Everyone seemed to be holding their breath. Possibilities emerging soon. Something changed by morning. Dr. Patel came back, sounding cautiously hopeful. The treatment had a good effect on Mark overnight. His heart rate is now within a normal range. Even if he is still in danger, we may have passed the worst of it if we move cautiously forward. Kelly let out a sigh of relief as she drew her breath out. When she gripped Mark's hand once again, she felt an extremely subtle response. I was satisfied, permitting her to believe that love could ultimately triumph. A letter to the audience. As Mark's recovery progressed, Kelly spoke to the waiting fans a few days later. This has been the hardest week of our lives, she remarked, her voice dripping with tears. My mate, my rock, my everything. That is Mark. I was reminded of how precarious life is when I saw him lying in that bed. Make sure you prioritize your well-being. Pay attention to the red flags. We are also grateful to everyone who prayed for our family. Love washed over us. Many were moved by what she said. Mark was no longer the only one involved. All the families who have ever stood in a hospital hallway, all the partners who have ever held a shaking hand in the intensive care unit, it was about them. Important takeaways. A tragic turn in Kelly and Mark's story shows that no one is safe from the precariousness of life, no matter how famous they are. Protecting one's health is paramount. When we are hurting, our love shines through the greatest. Everyone watching, including Mark, was jolted awake by his emergency. Silence, neglect, and stress are lethal. It is essential for our survival that we pay attention to our bodies. An everlasting love. Mark kept getting better in the weeks that came after. He took it easy, spoke with a gentler tone, and grinned more frequently. Keeping her hand close to his, Kelly seldom strayed from his side. He muttered, I scared you, didn't I? As they sat silently in his hospital room one night. Once again, Kelly's tears fell, above all else. Yet, you have not departed. To me, that's paramount. Surrounded by the very machines that had saved his life, they came to the realization that their actual power lay not in the glitz and glitter of Hollywood, but in the unbreakable relationship they had with one another. Final thoughts. Mark Consuelos' loved ones will always remember the intensive care unit emergency he experienced. The doctors may have spilled the beans on some tragic truths, but it wasn't the last chapter. Rather, it became an ode to tenacity, familial unity, and the love that can see you through the worst of times. It was devastating news for Kelly Ripa, but it also served as a poignant reminder that Mark's heartbeat was a miracle.